worked with a lot of boards, and I've heard a lot of different budgeting philosophies espoused: top-down, bottom-up, zero-based budgeting. First of all, what does it all mean, and what's the best option for you? So let's start with top-down. In my mind, top-down is probably where a finance function does a lot of it. They start with an Excel spreadsheet, and they basically do a budget without a lot of involvement from the other parts of the organization. And the problem with that alone is that sometimes the executives are aware of the budget, but it really doesn't filter down to be an actionable plan for the people in the team. Bottom-up budgeting, on the other hand, is getting the individual targets from the team, and actually building up a detailed budget team, department by department, team member by team member. The problem with bottom-up, I'll tell you one experience I had was when, after a company that we'd gone public with, we attempted to set targets for the next budget year, and the CEO said, no, let's just see what everybody comes back with. Well, the problem was the amount of loss they came back with, or the amount of spending was overwhelming and not at all palatable. And so we then had to go back and say, okay, here's your target now, and everybody complained that we cut their budget when the budget never really existed that way. You really are not in a good, you can't just let people do a budget without some kind of parameter or some kind of a target in mind. And that's really where kind of I tend to gravitate, sort of what I would call a hybrid approach of top-down and bottom-up. So, and what that means is that you kind of establish the broad parameters of a target for the budget with your executives and your board. Make sure that when you build this budget at a detailed level, that it's going to be a budget that actually hits something that the board's going to find acceptable, and that the top management is going to find acceptable. Then, once you've kind of agreed on those broad targets, and they could be revenue and profit, and maybe some major decisions around marketing spend or investment, then you go back and you allocate those targets out, and you build a detailed budget by department, and then you kind of end up in the right place. I also hear this concept of zero-based budgeting. All zero-based budgeting really means is that you just look at every, you don't do what the government does, where they say, hey, we spent $1 million last year, so it's going to go up by 4%. You start by saying, we have zero, how are we going to spend any dollar we spend? The FutureView system, actually, I would say, in some ways, because we end up building our budgets vendor by vendor and headcount by headcount, they effectively are zero-based. But like I said, I think it's really important to have that hybrid approach where you start off by kind of deciding on where you would like to end up when you finish the detailed budget, then go back, get your team to build that detailed budget, stress test it, or tell you why that the budget is not going to work. For example, if you give the marketing guy a small budget, he's going to come back and say, you're not going to hit this sales number with this budget. And that's a discussion that you want to have. One of the reasons I like to do this is because this is how you drive conversation in the budget process. And that's what budgets are supposed to be about. They're supposed to be about decision making, not about just putting numbers into a system or a spreadsheet. It's about making decisions. One of the things that I've always said, and we've talked about, budgets versus forecasts. The key thing, a budget is sort of like it's sort of like setting your destination in a GPS system. This is where I want to go at the end. You need to kind of know what your destination is first. Then you can start to build a detailed path to get there. Do I want to take highways? Do I want to take side roads? How do I want to do that? I'm a big believer, because it's about conversation and it's about getting input. I think a good budget has to be a collaborative process. You have to collect information and collect information from all different parts of the organization and pull it together. One of the ways I like to do this is to have individual discussions with each budget owner. Sit down and say, okay, let's go through how many, what do you think you're going to hire? What are the big what vendors are you going to spend with? What are your big goals in this presentation? Have them give you that information, and ideally incorporate it into a platform like the FutureView platform, where it automatically rolls up, and then look at the whole thing collectively. That does two things. One, it makes sure that you've captured all the budget information in a collaborative, in a detailed way, and it's automatically rolled up. You're not, as opposed to having millions of spreadsheets come at you from a finance perspective and trying to put them all together. And two, it allows you to force them to think about the choices they're making in a budget, and that's what a budget is, right? It's making choices. So I think that's really the way that I like to do budgets. Have a collaborative process, define your budget owners. Every budget owner has a P&L. Sit down with those budget owners and talk about their plans for the year and what they're going to try to do. And then use a tool like our platform to rapidly pull that data together, in a web-based. Our whole approach is web-based, which makes it collaborative. And I would say, as a final thing, the one part I think is probably best done by the finance group is once you've got all your P&Ls pulled together, that's when you do the balance sheet and the cash flow statement portion of the budget. I think that's best done by the finance group. After you have all the spending decisions and revenue decisions made in the budget. The number one reason that budget processes can be lengthy is if you're taking a spreadsheet approach. And I'll tell you what happens. It's simple. You're in finance, and so you create a template of how you want the budget to be captured, and you send it out to all the department heads, and you say, I need you to fill this out and put in this information. Invariably, someone will change the template. Even though you write in the email where you send out the template, do not change the template. The marketing guys always change the template. I don't know why that is, but that's what they do. And but someone's going to change the template. Then you get all these templates back as in finance. So I've got 20 departments. Now I've got 20 templates. I got to take those 20 templates and I've got to put it all into one big budget thing. Well, meanwhile, 6 people of the 20 have decided, oh no, they needed a version 2, or they had an additional discussion, or they were waiting for this, and so I'm waiting. Then they're sending me different versions. So I can't remember, is this the budget with version 2 of the sales forecast budget, or is this the version 3 of the sales budget? And I've got all these different version issues that come together, and also because I got to wait for everybody to send in their templates and roll it up each time I want to look at it, it's very hard to keep track of where I am during the process. It's not like I have very rapid insight into, okay, where's my budget now versus the targets that I established.
If you're looking to rapidly transform your finance function, visit us at FutureViewSystems.com.